Nesbit and her husband. And when I started looking into it, I realized that it was something very interesting because of the different angles of this case. Evelyn Nesbit being one of the most beautiful girls in the 1900s. She was beautiful since, according to witnesses and according to the accounts of back then, since she was a baby. And she was famous. She had pretty much everything that she wanted, but she also had a very tragic life and a lot of bad things happening to her, including this case of jealousy. So I'm gonna tell you her story a little bit, and then we'll finish with how jealousy took place in this case. And it was, again, a deadly emotion. So again, Evelyn Nesbit, if you don't know who she is, she was a beautiful girl who was all over the media in the early 1900s. She was compared to be famous as what maybe today Kim Kardashian is, and as beautiful as Marilyn Monroe. A lot of people say that she was born in 1884 on Christmas Day, but the year, it really is not clear, because according to the research that I did, people said that her mom would lie about her age so she could work. So that's something that you should keep in mind, and I'll explain why in a few more minutes. She was born in Pennsylvania, and according to, again, some accounts, she was so beautiful that since she was born, she was being visited by all the neighbors because of how beautiful she was, which, by the way, maybe it's flattering, but it's also a little bit creepy that they were just going to see her because she was beautiful. It's not like, oh, well, you had a baby, I'm gonna go visit you and say hi. No, it was, people would just go to stare at the beautiful newborn baby. Now, a couple of years later, her brother was born. His name is Howard, or was Howard. And now, there was a big difference between Howard and Evelyn with their dad. For some reason, this guy, in my opinion, he was a visionary. He had something. He believed that Evelyn had something special in her, and that she needed to work on those things. So she would dance and she would sing, but she also would read a lot. He would bring a lot of books to the house so she could read, and he believed that, she needed to practice all those things and work on all those things in order to gain a little bit more confidence. And she did. She was a very confident and beautiful little girl, which is kind of different from Howard, that really wasn't the same case. And a lot of people believe that Evelyn's dad did, had a preference for her. In 1893, they moved to Pittsburgh. Now, the dad was a very popular, I don't know if successful, but it was a very popular attorney at the time, and it was very well known. And the mom was a typical housewife, taking care of the kids, and maybe with not the most education. She was a little bit shy. She was, a stay-at-home mom, but really didn't have a lot of experience in working or any education that would help her get a job or be a little bit more independent if she needed to be. Sadly, when he was 40 years old, he died, and stay with some family members while they were trying to make it, find a job, and get a little bit more money. But it was a very, very hard time for not only the mom but also the kids. Eventually, they got a donation. I don't know if it was from the family or friends, or if they, raised money or whatever happened. But she got money to pay her first month of rent in a house, and the mom decided that she was going to rent rooms in order to pay for her rent from then on. So it would be kind of a boarding house. The only problem is that she didn't know how to approach people to charge them for rent. So she would send Evelyn, because she was younger, she was beautiful, and she was a little girl. And so she expected the man to pay the rent without any problem. Now later on, Evelyn would say that they would still give her a hard time, and that she understood that she had to do it because her mom couldn't do it. She felt really, really bad, and she struggled to pay the rent. So that was the way that Evelyn had to kind of help her mom get the money to pay the rent and have a safe place to live. Sadly, even this business venture that they started, and kind of a only way that they had to pay their rent and support themselves, failed. Again, a lot of articles kind of blame the mom not knowing what she was doing, being too, trusting strangers, and a lot of things that really wasn't good for the business. And even though Evelyn helped in any way that she could, it really wasn't enough to continue the business, and so they lost the house too. In June of 1900, the mom decided that she was going to leave and go to New York to see if she could find a job as a seamstress. However, it was even harder than where they were before. So what she did is left her kids with a family member while she was finding a job, getting a place for them to live, and then she was going to go get them. However, she couldn't find a job, but she had a reference from Philadelphia that would send her to some artists to take Evelyn to be kind of a muse, for paintings and pictures and stuff like that. So she decided to go get her kids, and they lived in a building on 22nd Street in Manhattan, and it was the very last room, and they were just the three of them started living there by themselves. Now Evelyn became something out of the ordinary. She started with that, but then she was in magazine covers, and she was in Vanity Fair, she was in newspapers, she was in commercials, whatever you name it, toothpaste, face cream, whatever it was. She really had a lot of work, and she was doing very, very well. However, the mom realized that she wasn't good enough to be her manager or even her mom. She was just really struggling, and that she had no way or means to help her daughter do better. So she ended up kind of staying away from the business for a while. Now when Evelyn was 16 years old, she met this guy. His name was Stanford White. He was a popular and very successful architect in New York that was mesmerized by her beauty. Now he was also described as a womanizer, and apparently he had a brief relationship. How can this guy, he was 30 years older than her, but at the time, your status, your money, and I don't know if the laws were so much different back then, but weird. They dated for about a year, and apparently he was not only mesmerized by her beauty, but also the fact that she was a virgin, and that was something that he really wanted. And so they dated for a year, and they just stopped. Now, at the same time, there was this guy, Harry Thaw, who was obsessed with Evelyn. Can you imagine? She was one of the most popular girls. She was, beautiful, and she was very, very young. We're talking about 16 when, she met this guy, Mr. White. But at the Mr. Thaw was very interested in her, so he would send her presents. I mean, he had money, and so he was trying to impress her in any way that he could. And after a long time, he ended up convincing her mom to let her go to Europe with him. Now, when they went to Europe, he went completely crazy. Now, just so you know, he was a little bit mentally unstable, so it wasn't something like it happened overnight. When they got there, he kept her prisoner in a castle in Austria. So 2 weeks she was there. Apparently he kidnapped her and abused her physically and sexually, assaulted her every single day. Now, after 2 weeks of this craziness, this beautiful girl with this random man in a random country out of her country, he was sad and he decided to ask for forgiveness. So he asked so much from her and her mom that they ended up getting married in 1905. Can you explain that to me? I mean, there must be something that I'm missing, or my brain is not able to process really how this is happening. But he continued to be an unstable man, and even though they had a somewhat of a normal marriage, this guy was obsessed. The now husband, Mr. Thaw, was obsessed with the idea that her previous boyfriend, the 30 years older than her, Mr. White, took her virginity. So it was something that he just couldn't deal with. He would go mad every single time that he thought about it. And I'm sure that maybe today you can see as well, maybe he thought that he took advantage of her, and that's why he was so upset. But it really comes down to the point that he was an unstable man, and he was older than her too. So it really had more to do with the pain that he felt because he wasn't the one, which doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm pretty sure that it had something to do with their beliefs at the times and and what they, I don't know, their customs, or I don't even know. But apparently this guy was obsessed with that, and he was always very, very mad at the architect, Mr. White. So on June 25th, 1906, there was this big musical that was called Mademoiselle Champagne, and it was a show that, since it was the opening night, most wealthy men in the New York area were part of the public. It was mostly wealthy people. It was mostly people that they knew each other. And during the final act, the husband, Mr. Thaw, got up, and while they were singing I Could Love a Million Girls, he stood up and shot Mr. White, point blank, and said to the crowd he had it coming to him. So he not only wanted to get rid of this guy, but he wanted to do it in a way that would show to everyone that, I don't know, that he was being punished. It almost seems like that he was being punished, and the guy that was wrong was Mr. White for dating his wife previously, because it was part of her past. So it really that shows you, and that was something that they were telling in that article, that jealousy is irrational. You can't really change what happened in the past, and in this case it's a perfect scenario for that, just to show you that it gets to a point, or it can get to a point where you can't control feelings of things that you cannot change. This guy really couldn't change the fact that his wife had a boyfriend and that she had sex with the guy. And so, I mean, not well. I mean, you can tell that a person with that, I don't know, the way that he looks in that picture, you can tell that he's okay with the idea of what he did. And he got acquitted. I mean, he got out. But Evelyn couldn't take it anymore. And who can blame her? I mean, he took her, he kidnapped her for 2 weeks. He raped her. He hit her. And then he apologized and said that he was a new man. And then he came and killed this man. I mean, you can't blame the girl for divorcing him. You know, this is one of those cases that you think, okay, it's one of a kind. Well, not really. I was reading this research that says that 90% of men and only 5% less, 85% of women have fantasized at least once about murder, and almost always of a romantic rival. There were a couple other cases that they had there, as Lisa Nowak in 2007, so it's not something from the past, and Sahel Sazemi in 2009. I think she was the one that was dating a football player, and you know, the point is that this is not something that happened in the 1900s, and it's not happening. I guess the point of the article was to show us that jealousy, it continues to be a strong emotion that can lead you to do some pretty crazy things. I mean, things that you wouldn't do otherwise, that your morals wouldn't let you do otherwise. But it's still one of those things that you can see repeated over and over again. It is one of those powerful things that, according to some experts, it really kind of takes over your body. It's something gets released and you lose control of what you're doing. Some people cry, some other people like to fight, some other people drink, others do drugs, and some other people, like these cases right here, they committed a crime. So overall, I think it's just a deadly emotion, because no matter if you commit a crime, or if you end up drinking, or if you end up doing drugs, or if you end up being mad all day or crying all day, those are the things that we don't really want to have in our lives. And I can tell you that when I was younger, I was super jealous. I mean, everything would make me really, really jealous. I can tell you that you can overcome it. I did. I am not jealous anymore. I don't feel it. It's not like I fake it. I don't feel it anymore. I believe that, and I learned that once you start to love yourself, and once you can look yourself in the mirror and say, this is what I'm worth, then you can let that feeling go. And not because jealousy means that you are insecure. It means, in my opinion, that you don't love yourself enough. And since you don't love yourself enough, deeply inside, you don't love your heart enough, you just think that nobody else can, and that there will be another better option out there for the person that is standing by you, from your husband, your wife. And when you get rid of this feeling, and when you understand how much you're worth, and when you understand how important it is to love yourself, no matter how beautiful, not beautiful, how you look on the outside, and how you are on the inside. I mean, you just have to accept things. You have to understand that there are things that you can change and work on those things, and the things that you cannot change, like if you don't like your nose, or if you don't like your ear, once you start to love yourself, those things will come naturally. You'll start to accept yourself for who you are. Take pride in the kind of person that you are and that you want to be. Work really hard to be a better person every single day, because none of us is done. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this world. We can and we should improve every single day of our lives. So I guess jealousy, it is really deadly. Not only for crime, but also for you and for your life if you are experiencing it. So I'm here to tell you some situations? Do you think it's something that we should all get rid of? Or is it something that, you deal with and how you deal with it? So thank you so